Okay, hello everybody, I'm Steve.
And I'm Kelly.
And this is day 2 of the Esri Developer Summit recap from GIS Inc. This is one of our favorite conferences to attend to every year. We usually send a good contingency this year because it's virtual. We're able to send a whole lot more, and hopefully you guys are too out there. We have, I think, 20 or so plus folks from our development team, our analysts, and so forth that are attending, which makes it nice. Something to remember too, that at least register for the Dev Summit, because then you can always go back and review the sessions. All of them are going to be recorded, and you can go back and review those at your leisure if you don't get time to hit them during the week, which is something I'm going to do because I know there's so many sessions that I want to attend. In fact, in my calendar, Kelly, I have dual meetings set up, so I know I got to go back and hit some of
Yeah, that's one of the nice things about this virtual format is that it's so nice and easy to go back and catch something you missed, because you certainly couldn't do that when it was live. You have to wait for the recordings. So.
And another thing too, I think is cool about being virtual is that the ability to constantly ask questions, like I see you here doing.
Yeah, so if you're in your tech session and you want to ask a question at the end of the session, you know, they've only got this limited little window of Q&A at the end of these sessions. And so this Ask Our Experts section has been a great place to go and say, hey, I didn't get the answer to my question. Like, please, can you help me out? It's almost as good as going into the big showcase.
Yeah, and you do that constantly throughout the whole 3 days here, which is really nice.
Yeah.
That, and also they provide access to a lot of the stuff, right, and content that we're all seeing.
Yeah, they show, of course, all sorts of code throughout all of these different sessions, and all of it's available on their GitHub. The Esri DevSummit GitHub page has all the samples that we're seeing in these sessions, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was even watching a vendor presentation. So Amazon Web Services did a presentation about how to do serverless IoT to ArcGIS Online, and he even posted his stuff on GitHub for us to access.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. So again, like yesterday, today started off with a nice plenary. Today's focus was really about the ArcGIS system, right? The whole ecosystem of stuff that Esri's been working on, as well as working with information, with data engineering and data analysis and spatial analytical tools. One thing, and so I don't want to go through everything, right? Because there was talk about desktop and online and enterprise and development side. But what I thought was interesting, which I don't think, especially here at GIS Inc., that maybe we tend to forget sometimes or overlook, that Esri creates these really nice focused workflows, which they call the Geo-Enabled systems, that have a very a focused set of tools and solutions and applications, and even data schemas that support these workflows, like Indoors and Mission and Business Analyst and GeoPlanner, Urban as well. And so Esri's been producing these Geo-Enabled systems that bring together all these different components, maybe a web, maybe a mobile, maybe a desktop solution, maybe a schema, depending on the system itself, to help fulfill that workflow, which is pretty nice. And we need to kind of, as a company, keep an eye on those so that we can help our customers learn a little bit more of what's going on there. Also, and I grabbed one slide from the end of the plenary. Obviously, again, they talked so much, but what was neat about the plenary was they were talking about what's coming up or what's next for the Esri technology. And you can see a bunch of stuff here, the timeline, but a couple of things that I want to point out that I thought was interesting was obviously ArcGIS Enterprise having a third option of deployment with inside of containerization or microservices through Kubernetes. And as we talked about, supporting it on Azure and supporting it on Amazon Web Services and the Google Cloud, even on premise with the right technology. So that was interesting. Talking about being able to access cloud-based big data warehouses and being able to run sort of on-demand these big analytics against our cloud-based like Spark clusters or other environments out there, having that being able to be just part of the whole ArcGIS system. Obviously, the whole gaming engine is always really fun to watch and 3D stuff. But something else that stood out to me as well is support for knowledge graphs or graph databases. So I don't know if you're familiar with those, but they've been around for a long time. I wasn't familiar with them until a couple of years ago, but they've been around for a long time. A lot of manufacturing industry uses them. A lot of high tech companies use them. Google uses it with its search engine services to help sort of build that relationship between connected data. And it just makes sense that that's a spatial problem too, right? We can create this spatial awareness of these relationships between different data sets. And so as we talked about that coming in the next releases of supporting that new graph database world, which just opened up the whole discussion around all the different data-driven and deriving knowledge from understanding different type of data sets there.
Yeah, we tend to take the data for granted sometimes, and it was really cool today. There was a lot of focus on all the different aspects of just the data, from the data acquisition in all its various forms, the way you can massage it, the way it can be delivered real time or static. The data is so important to everything that we do, and there was a pretty good emphasis on all the aspects that ArcGIS does just with that data.
Right. And so go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say then there's the processing of that data as well, which is, your artificial intelligence, your deep learning, your analysis, your real time, and networking. There's just so much analysis that you can do with it, which is actually still part of that data phase. It's not always just the end of the GIS process. Sometimes the analysis is sort of a sub-step to getting to the next piece.
When I was watching these presentations and this dump of information to us, I questioned myself. I said, are we really not leveraging the full breadth of this ArcGIS system? I mean, there's so much to it, and is there areas that we could be looking at and leveraging more so than we are today? I just think that's a yes answer. There's got to be some ways that we can leverage some of those other things, which was really impressive to kind of see them roll it out that way. But you mentioned sort of these engines out there that help us process this information. I noticed that again today, just like yesterday, they kept showing how the living atlas is growing with these tools and packages and models for deep learning and other solutions that are available to us online and on-premise and within desktop to extend that capability, and using those built-in engines to analyze and work with imagery data and point cloud data and all this different types of information, which I thought was pretty impressive. So the living atlas is out there. There's lots of stuff. I'm gonna take an assertive effort to kind of look out there and see and leverage some of these tools and models and packages that are available to me. And something I learned today, which I think I maybe heard of, but I know R is always been able to use inside of Python, but I didn't know now you can actually embed the R kernel inside of the Jupyter Notebooks and Notebook Server and have that be just another component that you can call upon to process and analyze information in real time, right within your development world, which I thought was pretty cool.
Very cool. And the Jupyter Notebooks, just themselves, are so important throughout all the data processing in all the different aspects of it, whether it's preparing the initial data sets or whether it's executing some of the analysis or even some of the deep learning. We're seeing these Jupyter Notebooks all over the place. Yeah,
we were actually having a sort of an internal discussion today
right.
about the benefits of Notebook, right? We have some hardcore developers who are like, I don't know, Notebooks is going to give me what I want, but someone like me, I think this is a perfect way to get started, to do that quick, POC, get the testing, see the results immediately, be able to backtrack, even schedule these things. So there's definitely a way to integrate this into our workflow. So, and that kind of brought us into some of the results, some of these solutions, these geo-enabled solutions that are starting to pop up within online and on-premise. And one of those is ArcGIS Velocity, which I thought was pretty cool. So this is sort of that bridge, I think, between what we were used to using in GeoVent, but extending it to one being available online, so I don't have to worry about the infrastructure. I can just leverage ArcGIS Online and Esri's infrastructure to support the ingestion of this data, but also bringing the analytics to this space to help us bring the data in, analyze that information, and then produce those results, which I think was sort of a differentiator between, you know, when and why I would use GeoVent on premise versus Velocity. And in order to get the Velocity type of experience on premise, you'd have to have GeoVent and GeoAnalytics server and the infrastructure to run it and support it, and things like that. So this ArcGIS Velocity is really opening up the opportunities to allow us to ingest not just large data sets, but any real-time information.
And it's amazing how fast it is.
Yes, very fast at processing because it's built on top of that microservices containerization that they talked about with Kubernetes. So things like Velocity, things like Urban, and things like Hub, those are taking advantage of those native cloud environments and services to gain that scalability, that speed, and that elasticity, which is pretty cool. All right, we got this slide here. I think you attended some of these sessions talking about data engineering and spatial analyst stuff.
Yeah, you know, they said even during the plenary that they think they might have actually finally made the data engineering fun. And I gotta say, the new data engineering tools in ArcGIS Pro is like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. Just to be able to analyze your schema and the data that is stored within your schema and assess the accuracy, the validity, run some statistics, and even execute some kind of processing on cleaning up your data. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they did note that this is probably the key here to anything. And we can have some really sexy software out there, but the data, getting the data to a point where you can actually use it to do something is key. And that's why they spend a lot of effort and time creating these engineering tools and solutions and processes and models and things like that to help that process so that we can take it to the next step here.
Yeah, and the spatial analysis tools also within ArcGIS Pro and in other areas as well. It's getting so much more impressive, all the different overlaying and comparing two different data sources and generating some really powerful analysis, and then outputting new analysis layers that we can use then for the next input step. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yep. And just like yesterday, we saw a lot of eye candy. We saw a lot of fun stuff.
Yep.
And you know, I don't want to get caught in that, you know, that shiny object syndrome method, but the way these tools are exposing the opportunities to go from 2D to 3D is just so impressive, and do this kind of stuff in real time has evolved drastically over the years.
Yeah, well, it's getting to that point where, you know, this may be impressive, but you know, as we start talking about gaming engines and increasing our usage of some of these more interesting three-dimensional data sets, this isn't just going to be eye candy anymore. It's going to be real and used much more regularly.
I remember back in the day that I worked at Esri when ArcGIS Explorer first came out, and Jack's vision was that we live in a 3D world, a 4D world in some cases. Why shouldn't we work in that space, right? We should just be in that space and manipulate the information as needed to handle the workflow. So this line of sight thing was just incredible. As I was watching them run through this in real time, I was thinking, you know, when I was in the Marine Corps, wouldn't it have been nice to have some tools like this back in those days? But that was, you know, that's dating myself. That's back in the late 80s, early 90s. And you know, the technology just wasn't there yet. But this was very impressive, very, very, very impressive. So a lot of eye candy, but yeah, let's, you know, I don't want to downgrade this discussion, but we have to get to the nitty gritty here. And we at GIS Inc. Have a team of folks that work very closely in the utility network space. And so we're always interested in where this is going, how this is evolving, the new capabilities. And Michael Parma, who leads up our team, gave us a couple of slides that we thought were interesting to kind of point out some of the changes, enhancements, mainly around managing versions and updating versions and when we can do that and how that's being changed going forward with the 2.8 and Pro and 10.9 ArcGIS Enterprise. For instance, you'll no longer have to post to default versions and calculate as separate processes, but users will be able to do that within their own workflow processes, not have to worry about going to default. And also moving the dependency from Pro to Server for determining the upgrade, the name version, post and reconciliations, and the ability to manage that process no longer at the Pro version, but the Server version. So it simplifies that process and improves the consistency between the platforms, right, moving from one to the other. So this is going to help our team help migrate from the geometric network space into the new spaces and get people up and spinning there. So that was kind of a neat tool. Also some improvements and some things that are coming in newer versions for the SDK, for ArcGIS Pro, specifically again for the utility network. Again, helping with the reconciling of information is now embedded as part of the API. So you can support sort of that partial posting process, right? And there's still some lag time with full support with UN topology and the parcel fabric, but that's coming in the future, as well as supporting non-spatial objects and tracing and the ability to return single aggregated and or multiple part geometries back. So all these tools are either there now or coming within this year, right? We've got they announced 10.9.0 is coming out in a couple of weeks, and then later in the summer, 9.1 and 2.8 is coming out soon. And so it's got a constant evolution and improvement with the software. And then the final one that Michael Sinus was again talking about, and I didn't really notice it, but we always hear, desktop SDKs and runtime SDKs and JavaScript, Python, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't even realize that there's this sort of this enterprise SDK that can be used to bypass that communication to the REST endpoint and talk directly to the geodatabase to help augment some of the processes.
I completely agree. I did not know that either, and
right.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, way cool, way cool. I had no idea. So there's a link there if you're interested in learning more. I know our team is aware of this, which I'm glad Joe Parma was there because he pointed this out to me, and pretty interesting. And also they went into specific software packages like GeoVent, Image Server, and Geoanalytics. We see a lot of folks leveraging GeoVent. We know that Velocity is out there and that has a workflow to support, but we still have a lot of folks at the municipality, the city, and government level that leverage GeoVent. So there's some improvements out there coming with the next versions of GeoVent Server. I think one of the big ones that was pointed out here was this ability to have this choice element processor. So as you're going through, so you create your connectors, both your input and output, but there's in the middle, what happens in the middle, right? There's this workflow that improves that process, having this ability to walk you through how to connect the dots together with the data, analyze that information, and get ready to push out to whatever system you're pushing it out there. So lots of enhancements and improved resiliency within the server. You see down there a note that updates to the gateway you always have to have this gateway to help be the gatekeeper of the information, the feeds that are coming in, and how that's spread out over your GeoVent services and things like that. Pretty cool stuff coming out with GeoVent. And they're not going away with it, which is nice, right? The Velocity is going to have its role, GeoVent's still going to have its role, and the intent is different for both, and we need to keep that in mind. So I sat through an ArcGIS Pro Road Ahead session, and I think out of the whole thing, there's a lot of really cool stuff, but the biggest one was he actually showed us, and he brought up two projects that were fairly large, like almost 200 megabytes in size, a number of layers and layouts and things like that. And he loaded them up, and you can see the differences there between 2.7 and 2.8, which again is set to be released here pretty soon. So lots of improvements under the hood. Lots of improvements with the data engineering tools, the spatial analytical tools, a lot of stuff like that available in Pro. So excited about that release. And then there's some neat things coming in these builder tools. So Experience Builder, talk to us a little about that, Kelly.
Yeah, so Experience Builder is kind of this confusing new builder. You know, is it the replacement for Web Builder? Is it not? And it's a little bit of yes, a little bit of no. Eventually, I think it's going to get there. But I think this whole styling and layout piece is a piece that Web App Builder does not have. And I think that's what makes Experience Builder so different and so almost overwhelming to use until you've spent some time. And it was great attending the session to kind of highlight, oh, here's how you do this part of the layout, here's part of this styling, and here's how different components are intended to work from a layout perspective, which I highly recommend if you're thinking about doing some Experience Builder. Try to catch this session because it really did a great job of talking just about the layout, which is something we don't have in Web App Builder. And then, of course, you know, if you're a developer and you're used to making custom widgets in Web App Builder, surprisingly, the experience is very similar to the Web App Builder custom widget, except for instead of it being a Dojo digit, it's a React component. Otherwise, it's the same. There's a similar type of structure, folder structure, where you're going to slap those widgets into your Web App Builder, except for it's Experience Builder now, but it's similar concept. But they also showed some pretty cool tools within the developer documentation where you can go to this storybook and you can see some of the existing components that they actually already have as part of the core code base of Experience Builder that you're allowed to take advantage of and import into your custom widgets. So that's pretty cool.
So someone from like myself who's not really into this space, I know like with Web App Builder, I downloaded the developer version. It came with Node or Node.js that I would kick off and run and then go up and I could build my widget and drop it in the widget folder. Is that still the same sort of concept here?
Yes, it definitely is still the same. And yeah, you're going to have to download the Experience Builder onto your machine. You're going to use some kind of node command to get it going. It's going to, you know, start that web server. You're going to be able to launch the app, and then you're going to use the Experience Builder the way you might feel comfortable in ArcGIS Online to create the experience. But then, yeah, you're going to have to drop in your widget into that widgets folder. It did seem like it was a little bit more seamless than the Web App Builder. Web App Builder tends to create a whole new copy of the site every time you build one. It didn't seem like Experience Builder was doing that, but I didn't get too far into, they didn't get too far into those weeds, but it seemed like they might have made some of improvements in that area.
Excellent, excellent. I know some of our developers have been eager to learn more about extending this, so this would be a good.
Yeah. I also sat in a couple dashboard sessions. And of course, you know, the dashboards are cool. All the dashboards are super cool, you know, charts and this and that. But they talked some more about the arcade expressions and how much you can do with arcade in the dashboard. It's getting pretty darn cool.
Right. And I even saw a demo where they had some really nice charts in the dashboard and brought them right into Experience Builder and extended that capability to work within the widgets inside. So it's just,
and that's definitely actually that's a good point, because you can embed lots of things inside Experience Builder. You can embed a survey 123 survey into Experience Builder. So that's what makes the Experience Builder so different from Web App Builder, and it makes it almost feel more like a dashboard, because you can embed dashboards within dashboards and surveys within dashboards, and you can do the same thing with Experience Builder as well. And it seems like the options are much more open-ended. I actually feel like Experience Builder is sort of likely what under the hood maybe some of these new templated solutions that we see a lot of now, probably built on Web App Builder. We're going to start seeing some that are built off of this Experience Builder framework as soon as they start to get more of the widget parity with Web App Builder.
awesome. Okay, and then so talking about integration. So if your organization is like ours, we are a Microsoft Office, right, 365 organization. We use Teams and SharePoint, Word, PowerPoint, right? We just you've just settled on that environment. And I sat through a session today that kind of bridged the gap between ArcGIS and Microsoft, and the way that the ArcGIS system is being integrated across the board, right? With Survey 123 apps and mapping capabilities inside of PowerPoint and Excel, and bringing in web maps and dashboards inside of SharePoint, right? Opening up those capabilities. But what I was interested in, why I went to this one, is to see and learn more about the Power BI, the sort of the Power Apps within the platform. The ArcGIS system. So Power BI, he had a great demonstration on how to fully leverage Power BI. And what's interesting is they introduced a new licensing scheme. Basically, if there's a free component. So if you're a Microsoft Office 365 user and you have access to Power BI, you can just use the map for free. And you get so many levels of geocodes and drive times and all this stuff just right out of the box for free. It's part of the Microsoft relationship. And then if you have a named user account, then your access just went out the roof. You get access to everything. And I don't have to worry about credits at all, which is so cool. Yeah, I don't have to worry about credit or anything, right? So, and he's showing demos. He was like geocoding 35,000 points, doing drive times, doing infographics and all this stuff, and no credits. Absolutely no credits, because it's part of the relationship. So I saw a lot of that integration. I talked a lot about how Esri is building this thing called ArcGIS for Power Platform. So to support, the Power Automate, the event agents, the Power applications, Power BI, anything that's coming out of that Microsoft 365 platform, Esri's going to start supporting and integrating more so throughout 2021. So you'll see a lot of that. We've already know that we can take a Survey 123 app, we can do a webhook, and we can trigger emails and things like that. But that's just going to get better and more entrenched inside of the whole Microsoft world, which was pretty cool.
I need to add that to my list of ones to go back and watch.
Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't done something with Teams yet, right? You're always fiddling with stuff. I want to see a map in Teams,
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's on my list.
Yeah. All right. So that's sort of a wrap for day 2, right? It was chock full of great information again. Again, reminder, if you haven't registered, please register, because you'll get lots of good content. And any last parting words?
Nope, we got one more day. I'm just kind of sad that there's not dodgeball at the end of it.
I know. I was watching the planner, and the very beginning had that movie was showing donuts and dodgeball and all.
I know.
That's one thing I'm missing for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Kelly, for joining me, and look for our wrap up tomorrow.
All righty.